You ever notice how the devil hides in the details? Like how a woman who's been wearing Chanel No. 5 for 6 years suddenly smells like coconut body mist from Victoria's Secret, cheap, sweet, and desperate. Or how a husband who's never been into social media suddenly starts checking the Instagram stories of a coworker named Lisa at 2 a.m. That's the kind of shift that would make a priest squint during confession. In my moment, it was a phone wallpaper. Not a message, not a photo, not even a name, just a lock screen. I picked up her phone to hand it to her, still charging on the counter, and saw it. A picture of a sunset. Except it wasn't just any sunset. It was a very specific photo, one I'd taken from our honeymoon in Santorini. I recognized it because I remember the fight we had just before it, and how I stormed off and took that shot alone. She hated that picture. Said the light was too orange, the sky too washed out. But now? It was set as her wallpaper, and she hadn't even cropped out the figure of a man in the distance. That's when I knew something was off. Not because of what was there, but because of what didn't make sense. Why would she suddenly cherish a moment she despised? Why was she using a photo she didn't take? And if it was meant to be a tribute to us, why hadn't she said a word about changing it? So I did what any loving, supportive, silently suspicious husband would do. I smiled, handed it to her, and went straight to the guest bathroom to throw up in silence. The truth wasn't in what she said. It was in the tone she didn't use. In the way her eyes lingered too long on the screen. In the way she tucked it away like a sacred object, as if I hadn't just seen it. That's when I started to dig. And what I found wasn't a trail, it was a goddamn highway. Her texts were clean. Suspiciously clean. But there were patterns. Deleted messages around the same time every Friday night. Gaps in her browsing history. Spotify playlists that didn't match her taste, filled with songs by artists like James Blake, stuff I listen to when I want to feel something, not her usual bubblegum pop. She was trying to blend her world with someone else's. And she was doing it poorly. Then came Lisa, my imaginary coworker. My out. My leverage. I invented her on a whim, testing the waters. I mentioned her once at dinner. Lisa said the same thing today at work. My wife blinked, tilted her head slightly, said nothing, just kept chewing. 3 days later, I laughed at a text that didn't exist. Then I mentioned we were grabbing lunch next week to go over a presentation. My wife's tone got tight. You two seem close. And I said, calm as a corpse, she reminds me of someone I used to love. I let the silence hang like a noose. That's when it started. The slow shift. The insecurity. The paranoia. She began checking my phone when she thought I was asleep. Woke up early to see if I'd showered the night before or if I was sneaking out. She started wearing more makeup around the house. Started asking questions like, do you think I've changed? No, sweetheart. I think you've been caught. But I didn't say that. I said nothing. I watched. I let the silence grow teeth. Because there's something deeply unsettling about a man who doesn't yell. A man who doesn't accuse. A man who simply waits. She tried seduction, sloppy, guilt-ridden attempts to reclaim a bond she'd already shattered. I let her, but never initiated. Let her feel every ounce of her betrayal rebound in the form of hollow passion. And every time she moaned, I imagined her crying. Not now, no. That would come later. After I carved out every ounce of emotional certainty she had. After Lisa started leaving perfume in the car. After I accidentally left receipts from a hotel downtown, rooms I never entered. After I started working late, texting just enough to keep her guessing. You see, I wasn't interested in leaving her. Not yet. Leaving is mercy. I wanted her to feel watched, compared, outclassed. I wanted her to wonder every night if I was outdoing her in the same game she thought she was playing solo. I was the faithful husband turned phantom rival. And Lisa? Lisa was everything she feared. Smarter, younger, untouched by betrayal. Lisa was a mirror, and I made sure my wife stared into it every day. Not to reflect what she'd done, but to see what she'd lost. They say you don't notice a glacier moving until it's already torn through the valley, and that's exactly how it happened. At first, everything was quiet. Too quiet. We were in that zone of life where you think the chaos has calmed down for good. Steady jobs, steady routines, inside jokes that still landed, kisses that still came without asking. I made her coffee every morning, 2 sugars, oat milk, the way she liked it. We watched reruns of shows we'd seen 100 times because she liked familiarity, and I liked watching her recite lines before the actors could. We'd go out on Saturdays, laugh at couples who argued over appetizers, hold hands in the car on the way back. It felt like peace. It looked like peace. But it was the kind of peace you find just before a storm hits, the sky too blue, the air too still. And then came the shift. Subtle. Intentional. She started getting up earlier than usual, not to cook or do yoga like she used to, but to sit on the couch in silence, scrolling her phone with a look I couldn't read. Not anxious. Not sad. Just elsewhere. I asked her once what she was reading, and she said, just some stuff about boundaries. I didn't think much of it. Everyone's into self-help these days. But then she started using the language, those hollow, therapist-approved buzzwords that feel more like walls than conversations. I need time to reconnect with myself. I just feel like I've lost my sense of independence. I don't want to wake up in 10 years and realize I forgot who I am. At first, I supported her. Of course I did. I offered to go to workshops with her, read the book she was reading. But she waved it off, said it was a personal thing. Fine. Personal. I could do personal. But then personal turned into private. She started putting passwords on her devices, saying she wanted to build healthier digital habits. She took more walks. Alone. Started dressing a little different, nothing drastic, just less comfort, more effort. Her jeans fit tighter. Her nails were always done. A new perfume appeared that didn't have the warmth I was used to. It was sharp, citrusy, like something worn to impress strangers, not seduce a husband. She stopped sitting close on the couch. Stopped laughing at my jokes unless we were in public. I started feeling like a prop in her life, a piece of decor she'd outgrown but hadn't figured out how to replace yet. Her phone was always face down. She kept getting texts during dinner, one she didn't answer but also didn't ignore. She claimed it was work, but I knew her team. They didn't text like that. And then came the projects. New hobbies, new classes, late meetings that didn't have names. She started using vague terms like a few people from the group or this guy from the seminar. One day, I opened the trunk of her car to load groceries and found a gym bag. She hadn't been to a gym in years. Inside was a change of clothes, a water bottle I didn't recognize, and a cologne sample still tucked in its paper slip. It wasn't mine. I stood there for a long time, the frozen peas melting in the bag next to me, wondering how many tiny lies it took to build a life outside of someone. When I asked her later if she wanted to go to the movies that night, she smiled. I have a thing. Just like that. No details. Just a thing. And I smiled back like I didn't just see the blueprint of her second life. I told myself it was nothing. People grow. People change. She wasn't cheating, she was evolving. That's what she said the next morning, too, when I asked her how she was feeling. Evolving, she said, like it was a good thing. But the thing about evolution is, not everyone makes it to the next stage. Some species get left behind. Extinct. She stopped saying we. It was always, I now. I'm thinking of going on a trip this fall. I might start a podcast. I've been journaling a lot about what I really want. None of those sentences included me. None of them even acknowledged me. Her world was expanding, and I was just orbiting it. A leftover. A relic. And still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because you don't scream at the crack in the dam, you watch it. Measure it. Wait for the right moment to let it burst. Because if you play it right, you can make sure the flood only drowns one of you. It was a Wednesday. Nothing dramatic ever happens on a Wednesday, which is probably why it hit like it did. I was working from home that day, nursing a coffee that had gone cold hours ago, when I realized I hadn't seen her car in the driveway. She said she had a client meeting, something about a collaborative branding session at a shared workspace downtown. That's what she told me. But I was bored. And boredom is a dangerous thing for a man who's already carrying too many unanswered questions. So I checked our shared laptop, the one she forgot she synced to her email months ago. Not out of distrust. Just curiosity. The kind of curiosity that simmers under the surface when something feels off but hasn't yet shown its teeth. Her inbox was clean, too clean, like someone who had just scrubbed blood off the floor. But she forgot about the calendar. There it was, today's event, labeled Rendezvous Wine Glass at 3:30 p.m. No location, just a wine glass emoji. Cute. I checked the clock. 4:02 p.m. I didn't panic. I didn't rage. I just sat there, feeling nothing and everything all at once. I clicked the event, and it opened a chain of past entries, coded names, vague descriptions, timestamps that always aligned with the days she came home, energized, glowing with a joy she used to reserve for our anniversaries. I stared at the screen until my eyes stopped blinking. Then I stood up, walked to the window, and waited. I didn't want confirmation. I already had it. I just wanted the image. I wanted to see what betrayal looked like when it thought it was still safe. Her car pulled in at 4:19 p.m. She got out slowly, like someone returning from something indulgent and secret. She looked different, fuller, satisfied in a way I hadn't made her feel in months. Not because I couldn't, but because she'd stopped letting me. She came inside humming, dropped her purse on the kitchen table like a woman who thought her life was intact. I didn't move. I stayed in the hallway where she couldn't see me, watched her pour herself water, check her phone, smile at a message. Then I heard it, the sound that broke me. A voice message played softly from her phone. It was a man, speaking low, intimate. "You taste like sin, and I'd do it all over again." That was it. 12 words. No names. No context. Just enough to turn my bloodstream into ice. She giggled, deleted it, kept scrolling. My heart didn't race. My fists didn't clench. I simply stepped back from the hallway and went to our bedroom. Sat down at the edge of the bed where she used to curl up beside me. And something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not violently, but with a precision that only comes from complete clarity. I realized then that I was no longer living with my wife. I was cohabitating with a stranger who wore her face, used her voice, and kept her wedding ring on out of convenience. Everything shifted. The warmth I'd held onto out of loyalty drained from my veins. I was no longer the man trying to save a marriage. I was the man preparing for retribution. Not the kind you read in thrillers. The quiet kind. The kind that waits. That plans. That makes itself invisible until it's already too late. I watched her float around the house that evening like nothing had happened. She asked me if I wanted Thai or Italian for dinner. I said Italian. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, told me she was going to shower first. And I nodded like the loving fool she thought I still was. She didn't know that I'd already taken a screenshot of the calendar, forwarded it to a dummy email account, started tracking her phone location through our shared mobile plan. Something she'd never questioned because I was always the tech guy. She didn't know that while she rinsed Office Sent in our shower, I was syncing her cloud backups to my drive, combing through audio files, GPS tags, and deleted messages recoverable by a tool she'd never even heard of. She didn't know that I had just watched the final nail drive itself into the coffin of her image. And the best part? She thought I hadn't noticed a thing. That night, I lay beside her in bed, her head on my shoulder, her breathing soft and steady like she was sleeping beside a man she still owned. But I was already gone. What she held wasn't her husband. It was the ghost of the man who once loved her. And that ghost had just decided it was time to start haunting. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to cry or beg or confront her with shaking hands. I just needed to listen to the silence, the details, the patterns she thought were invisible. She was so wrapped up in her new life that she never considered I might be smarter, colder, and infinitely more patient than she remembered. The first move was simple. I asked her about her Thursday schedule, said I wanted to surprise her with lunch at her favorite vegan cafe. She hesitated, smiled too tightly, and said she had a long meeting off-site with a client. I nodded, said I understood. The next morning, I ordered a bouquet, sunflowers, her favorite, with a little card that read, "Hope this brightens your day like you used to brighten mine." I didn't sign it. I had it sent to the address she gave me for the meeting, some artsy co-op workspace downtown. And I waited. 3 hours later, I checked the delivery status, signed by M. Collins. Not her. Not even close. I looked up the address. It was a law firm. No branding consultants. No co-op art scene. Just suits and courtrooms. And she never mentioned flowers. Never thanked me. Never even pretended. That was confirmation number one. After that, I got bolder. I used an old burner phone from a drawer in the garage, one I used to keep for travel emergencies. I created a fake Instagram profile, some outdoorsy, beardy type with just enough curated aesthetic to seem real. I had him follow her. She accepted. Within 2 days, he messaged her. Something subtle. "You look like someone who loves trouble." She replied. Not with outrage, not with suspicion, just a winking emoji. Then, a day later, a message. LOL, depends who's asking. She was baiting strangers now. Playing the market. I didn't even need to push further. She did it for me. Every message, every flirtatious heart reaction, every little digital betrayal was timestamped and saved. The next step was the money. I pulled our joint bank statements, sorted by date, filtered for out-of-pattern spending. That's when the puzzle came together. A boutique hotel charge every other Thursday, always under a slightly varied name, just enough to fly under radar. Sometimes it showed up as Event Suite LLC, other times as RSVP Holdings. but always on the same day she had client meetings. Same time window. I mapped it. The overlap was perfect. That was confirmation number 2. Still, I didn't confront. Instead, I began following someone else, her best friend, Rachel. The one she always claimed was her confidant, her sister from another mister. I never trusted Rachel. Not because she was fake, but because she was too good at pretending not to see things. I knew if anyone knew the truth, it was her. So I started tagging along on their hangouts. Offered to drive them once, dropped them off at a bar, told them I'd be back in 2 hours. I never left. Parked a block away. Sat still. And at exactly 9:17 p.m., I saw Rachel leave alone. No sign of my wife. I followed Rachel instead, easy enough. She wasn't cautious. She met a guy at a diner. Tall, slick, and far too familiar with her. They kissed. I didn't care about that. What I cared about was what she said as they sat across from each other. I recorded it from a table behind them using the voice memo app on my phone, placed inside a coffee cup. At one point, she leaned forward and said, "She's not going to leave him yet. She's trying to bleed him slow. But once she's set with the apartment, it's game over." That was confirmation number 3. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I walked out, deleted the audio from the app, then uploaded it to my cloud. That night, I crawled into bed beside my wife, held her like nothing had changed. She whispered, "You've been quiet lately." I smiled and said, "Just tired, love. Been thinking about the future." She kissed me. I let her. Because she didn't know that I already had copies of her calendar, her texts, her location history. She didn't know I'd installed a keylogger on her laptop that captured every draft she never sent. She didn't know I'd taken screenshots of her lover's name, his address, and his social profiles. She didn't know I'd already contacted the leasing office of the apartment she was planning to move into, posing as her husband, explaining that she was emotionally unstable and asking for a joint email confirmation to stop any fraud. They complied. She didn't know that every time she lied, she stepped further into the grave I was digging with a grin. She thought she was 3 steps ahead, but I was already at the finish line, watching her run toward the edge of a cliff, and I wasn't going to yell for her to stop. I was going to wave. It was a charity gala. Formal wear, soft jazz, and enough wine to make even the most miserable marriages look photogenic for a night. I wore a tailored suit she bought me last Christmas. Ironic, really, considering how far we'd come since then. She looked stunning, of course, but there was a distance in her eyes, like she was already imagining herself in another man's arms even as she clung to mine for photos. I smiled. I laughed. I played the part perfectly. She introduced me to colleagues, friends, people she pretended I'd met before. I nodded, shook hands, even raised a toast to growth and transformation. It was during dessert that it all happened. I'd arranged for a projector presentation to follow the dessert course, allegedly a tribute montage for one of the charity's retiring founders. The host clicked through slides of smiling faces, old newspaper clippings, heartfelt quotes. The room was warm with applause. Then it changed. The screen flickered once, then displayed a still image. A hotel room. Her. On a bed. Not naked, just too comfortable, too intimate. A man, shirtless, familiar only through his Instagram profile and a few surveillance shots I'd pieced together. They weren't kissing. They didn't need to be. Her hand on his chest was all the court needed. The room went silent. The host looked confused. She froze beside me. Her face drained of all color. She looked at me, a question forming on her lips before she settled on denial. "That's not me." I turned to her, calm, unblinking. "No, it's photoshopped. Or old. That's not what it looks like." I nodded slowly. "Looks recent to me. Same dress you wore 3 weeks ago to your client dinner." Her jaw twitched. "Okay, look, we were just talking. We didn't even do anything. You're making this bigger than it is." She tried to grab my hand. I pulled it away gently. "You lied. For months. You built an entire side life and filled it with someone who doesn't even know how you snore when you're drunk." Her voice dropped, defensive. "You weren't there for me. I tried to talk to you. You were always working, always distant. What did you expect me to do?" I leaned in, my voice low, steady, meant only for her. "I expected you to honor your vows, not rewrite them when it got inconvenient." Her eyes flashed with something sharp, cruel. "You think you're so perfect? Maybe if you'd paid more attention, I wouldn't have had to find someone else." I smiled, not with joy, but with pity. "No, you didn't find someone else. You settled for someone dumber. Someone who hasn't even figured out he's a placeholder." Her breath hitched. The first sign of real fear. I watched it crawl up her spine. You don't understand, she whispered. You don't know what it's been like for me, feeling trapped, ignored. I leaned closer, still quiet. You weren't trapped. You were bored. And instead of facing that like a grown woman, you acted like a coward. Her mouth opened to fire back, but nothing came. Just silence. Just the weight of 100 choices crashing down at once. Around us, people were whispering, shifting in their seats, trying not to stare while staring all the same. I stood up slowly. You wanted space, remember? I said it gently, like a man offering mercy. You have it now. She looked up at me, eyes wide, lips trembling, but I wasn't done. There are files in your inbox. Full documentation. Timeline. Screenshots. Affidavits. The lease to the apartment you thought you secured? Voided. The security deposit? Refunded under my name. The job offer you were hoping for, through that contact from the networking event? Never existed. I made sure of that. Her breathing quickened. You didn't. I did, I replied, soft as snowfall. Every step you took away from this marriage, I followed. Not to stop you. To make sure the bridge was too burned to ever rebuild. She tried to stand, to speak, but her knees buckled slightly. I caught her, out of reflex, not love, and held her just long enough to steady her. Why? She asked, voice small. Why would you do all this? I stared at her, the woman I used to love, the woman I no longer recognized. Because you don't learn lessons from people who forgive you too early. You only learn when the consequences show up wearing your husband's face. I didn't leave. Not yet. I returned to my chair. Sipped my wine. The screen had gone black now, the host fumbling through apologies, people pretending not to whisper. She sat next to me, rigid, eyes darting, trying to plan her next lie, her next move. But it was already too late. She was playing checkers. I was finishing chess. And we both knew it. The moment the lights came back on and the crowd returned to pretending they hadn't just watched a marriage implode in front of their creme brulee, she followed me out of the ballroom like a stray shadow, her heels clicking too fast, her breath catching as she tried to match my pace. We didn't speak until we reached the car, the silence so loud it rang in my ears. She slid into the passenger seat, eyes darting, hands twitching, waiting for me to yell, to slam the steering wheel, to ask her why, but I didn't. I drove. Slowly. Calmly. She cracked first. You're not even going to say anything? She snapped, her voice sharp and high, already fraying at the edges. I didn't look at her. I said everything I needed to in that room. She let out a bitter laugh. You think you're so clever. What? You wanted to humiliate me? In front of everyone? You got what you wanted, right? I kept driving. The silence made her louder. You smothered me, she screamed suddenly. You made everything about you. Your work, your stupid routines. You think that's love? That's prison. I turned to her briefly at a red light. You could have asked for a key instead of digging a tunnel. That shut her up for 3 seconds. Then came the next phase. Her voice softened, trembled. I was lonely, okay? I felt invisible. I didn't know how to say it. You used to look at me like I was the only thing in the world, and then one day you just stopped. I nodded. Because one day, you stopped being the woman I loved. You turned into someone who smiled at me while planning to leave. She bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. You don't understand what it's like, watching your life shrink into someone else's shadow. I looked straight ahead. No. But I do know what it's like to watch someone rewrite history to avoid guilt. Her hands clenched into fists. You were boring. Predictable. Always so in control. You never made me feel alive. I gave the smallest smile. So you cheated to feel interesting. She looked away. This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man. I pulled into the driveway. Parked. Turned off the engine. No, I said, turning to her with eyes colder than she'd ever seen. This happened because you're a coward. A child. You ran from yourself and blamed me when the mirror cracked. She opened the door, slammed it shut, stormed toward the house. I followed slowly, watching her unravel with every step. Inside, she turned to me, eyes wild now. You're just going to act like none of this mattered? Like we didn't build something together? I dropped my keys on the table, took off my jacket. We didn't build anything. I built. You borrowed. She crossed the room in 2 strides, slapped me hard, trembling with rage. I didn't flinch. Feel better? I asked. She stared at me, horrified, because she realized the man who once worshipped her was gone. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't angry. I was empty. And nothing she threw would fill that void again. You can't just check out, she screamed. You don't get to decide when it's over. I stepped forward, slowly, until there was barely a breath between us. I didn't check out. I watched you walk away piece by piece and hoped you'd turn around. You didn't. So I'm not deciding it's over. I'm confirming it. Her lip quivered. So that's it? You're just done? After everything? I looked her in the eye, and for the first time in months, I saw fear instead of arrogance. I was done the second you looked me in the eye and lied. Everything since then has just been paperwork. She tried again, softer now, desperate. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. Please. I'll stop. I'll do whatever you want. I stepped back, shook my head slowly. You don't get to heal with me after breaking me. Go find comfort where you left your dignity. Her shoulders sank. The woman who once strutted through life like she owned every room now looked like a ghost caught in her own home. You used to love me, she whispered. I nodded. I did. And you killed that version of me. I turned to leave the room, her voice trailing behind me, a broken record of apologies and excuses. But I didn't hear her anymore. Not really. Because the worst thing you can do to someone who thrives on manipulation isn't scream or cry or hit back. It's to stop playing. To let them dance alone in the chaos they created. To let them realize that your silence isn't surrender, it's indifference. And that, to her, was the final betrayal. Revenge didn't come with fire and screaming. It came with structure, silence, and the patience of a surgeon with a scalpel in hand. The night she finally fell asleep crying into a pillow I no longer shared, I sat at my desk with a checklist I'd spent weeks perfecting. It was time. First, the legal groundwork. I'd been meeting quietly with a divorce attorney for weeks under the guise of business lunches. I brought him everything. Timestamps, photos, recordings, texts, the fake profiles I'd used, her voice messages, the money trail, even the video of her bragging to Rachel. He was impressed. Said I'd done half his work already. We filed the paperwork under sealed conditions, citing infidelity and dissipation of marital assets. She wouldn't get the notification until I was ready. Then came the finances. I'd opened new accounts in my name only, routed my direct deposit away from our shared ones. I froze the credit cards she used and left only the one tied directly to my name. I rerouted every utility, electric, water, internet, to her name and removed my liability. Quietly, efficiently. The car she drove was mine, legally purchased under my business entity. One morning, while she was in the shower, I used the spare key, drove it to my office garage, and left it there. I ordered an Uber to take her to wherever she planned to lie next. The look on her face when she stepped outside and saw an empty driveway was one I'll cherish more than any wedding photo. Then the social circle. I didn't make a scene. I didn't post some dramatic monologue on Facebook or send out mass texts. I simply contacted people who mattered. Her parents got a polite email with attached documentation, screenshots, explanations, a clear timeline. No hate. Just clarity. Her father called me an hour later. Said he was sorry. That he'd suspected but didn't want to believe it. Her mother cried. I didn't. I moved on. Her boss got a packet, anonymous, though anyone with half a brain could guess who sent it. Enclosed were screenshots of her flirting with clients, texts sent during work hours, and a record of her Thursday meetings that aligned perfectly with sick days and unapproved absences. I didn't have to spell it out. HR did the rest. She didn't lose her job immediately, but the warning went on file. The promotion she'd been bragging about just 2 weeks earlier? Pulled. No explanation. No appeal. Just silence. Like mine. The apartment? She never got it. I called the leasing office the day before she planned to sign. Told them about her income instability, the fraudulent financial statements she planned to submit, another document I'd intercepted and saved. They flagged her file. When she showed up, they told her it had been rented already. She called me in a rage. I didn't answer. Next, the friends she leaned on. I didn't send messages. I simply started inviting them out. One-on-one. Grabbed drinks with a few of the guys she kept me away from. Had calm, honest conversations. Showed them proof, but never pushed. Just let them come to their own conclusions. They did. One by one, they stopped responding to her. She noticed. She started asking questions. No one answered. I left no room for her to play victim. No door open for apology. Just a wall she ran into every time she tried to claw her way back into the life she'd taken for granted. I reclaimed the house, not just physically but emotionally. Changed the locks. Repainted the bedroom. Removed every trace of her from my daily routine. The photo albums went into storage. The gifts into the trash. Her keys deactivated. Her name scrubbed from every login and account. By the time she got the divorce papers served at her work, hand-delivered by a process server in a crisp suit. She'd already been removed from my world so thoroughly, so cleanly, that it felt like she was an echo from a life I'd already outgrown. She called me 23 times, texted, emailed, begged for a conversation, said she didn't understand what was happening. But she did. She just didn't expect it. Because manipulators always believe they're the smartest person in the room until the real strategist shows his hand. And I never played mine until I was 5 moves past checkmate. She thought she had time to fix it, to pull me back in. She didn't know I'd already finished writing her ending before she even started her apology. It was her niece's graduation party, small, close-knit, hosted at her sister's place, full of relatives who'd known us since we were the golden couple at family barbecues. She asked me to come, almost sheepishly, like she knew she didn't deserve my presence but still clung to the image of togetherness. I agreed. Not out of forgiveness, but strategy. The stage was set. Everyone would be there, her parents, cousins, a few coworkers who doubled as family friends. And by now, they all knew. Quietly, without ceremony, I'd made sure every one of them had seen the truth. I didn't dramatize it. I simply let the facts speak. They saw the texts, the hotel bills, the photos, the voice memo. I gave no commentary, offered no opinions, just the raw data, unfiltered and undeniable. By the time we arrived, the air was thick with something she couldn't see yet, but I could. The subtle distance. The cool smiles. The way people looked through her instead of at her. She greeted her mother with a hug, only to receive a weak pat on the back. Her father didn't make eye contact. Her sister forced a smile so strained it looked painful. And me? I walked in beside her, calm, composed, like a man bringing the condemned to the gallows in her Sunday dress. She tried to play the part, laughing too loud, complimenting outfits, pretending not to notice how people peeled away from her as soon as they were done nodding. She poured herself wine. A second. A third. But even that couldn't keep her voice from cracking when she tried to get her brother-in-law to laugh about a meme, only to be met with a polite nod and a quick excuse to walk away. Then it happened. Her phone lit up with a message just as her lover's name popped up, bold and unavoidable. She grabbed it too fast, drew too much attention. Her cousin noticed. Leaned over. Read it upside down before she could hide the screen. The room shifted. A few whispers. A glance passed like wildfire. Her aunt stood up from the couch and moved to the other side of the room. Her niece, whose party this was, looked at her with the kind of confusion that only comes from learning someone you loved might not be who you thought. And still, she smiled. Still, she clung to the pretense. You all are being so weird today, she joked, loud, forced. What, did I forget to wear deodorant? Silence. And then, softly, her best friend, former best friend now, spoke from the corner. They know. Just that. 2 words. The air collapsed. Her smile vanished. She looked at me. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. She stammered. What do you mean? Her friend stood up, pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse, held it out. You remember this? She asked, calmly. From that night at the hotel? The photo. The one she'd sent in confidence. The one where she posed in lingerie she swore was for me, only it never was. She reached out, hand shaking, but the paper dropped before she could grab it. Her friend turned and walked out the door. Then came the sound of chairs scraping, soft footsteps as others followed. Her cousin, her sister, even her mother. Not with drama, not with shouting. Just quiet shame. No one raised a voice. They simply left, one by one, until she was standing alone in the middle of the room, red-faced, gripping her phone like it could somehow rewind time. She turned to me, eyes wide, desperate. Say something, she pleaded. Please. Tell them it's not true. Tell them you still love me. I stayed silent. Just watched her. Let her feel the weight of everything she'd built collapsing under its own deceit. You're enjoying this, she spat suddenly, voice sharp again, grasping at anger like a drowning woman grabbing driftwood. You wanted this. You planned it. You sick bastard. I tilted my head slightly. Not smug. Not cruel. Just observant. Because nothing I could say would hit her harder than seeing me unaffected. Untouched. Unmoved. She dropped her wine glass. It shattered. She flinched. And then, finally, her shoulders crumbled. Her legs gave out. She sank to her knees in the middle of the room, sobbing into her hands. Not for the marriage. Not for me. For the loss of the world she thought she controlled. And still, I didn't leave. I stood there, watching. And when her eyes finally lifted to meet mine, she didn't see hate. She saw nothing. and it broke her more than any scream ever could. It was supposed to be a calm dinner. Her parents, my brother, a few mutual friends, all seated around a long mahogany table under soft lighting and the forced pretense of reconciliation. She'd begged for it. Said she wanted to clear the air, to explain herself, to show everyone that things weren't as bad as they looked. I agreed. Not because I believed her, but because some things are better destroyed in the presence of witnesses. She wore a cream dress, the same one she wore to our engagement party. Ironic, really, considering the only thing engaged tonight would be war. The conversation started awkward, but civil, small talk, tight smiles, the clinking of silverware on porcelain. Her father couldn't meet my eyes. Her mother kept dabbing her napkin into an untouched glass of wine. My brother stayed silent, watching her like a snake handler waiting for the first twitch. And then, as if she couldn't help herself, she lit the fuse. I just feel like I've been crucified for one mistake, she said, voice trembling just enough to sound fragile but not enough to fool me. I smiled. One mistake. I said it softly, as if testing the words on my tongue. Should I get the slideshow again? The table stiffened. She scoffed. You're unbelievable. I'm trying to make peace and you're still playing the victim. That did it. My brother leaned forward. He's the victim because you tore apart your marriage like it was a scratch-off ticket, hoping for something better. Her face went red instantly. I was unhappy. He made me feel small, like I didn't matter. He controlled everything. I laughed once short, sharp. You mean I paid every bill, cleaned up every mess, gave you the freedom to explore a career you didn't even care about until you met someone to flirt with at workshops? Gasps. Her friend, the one who brought the wine, shifted uncomfortably. That's not fair, she snapped. You weren't there. You don't know what it was like to live with him. I turned to her. You're right. You don't. But he did. And he lived through months of lies, silence, and watching the woman he loved become a stranger who smelled like someone else's cologne. Her voice cracked then. I wasn't myself. You were yourself, I shot back. Louder now. That's the part that hurt most. You weren't drunk. You weren't coerced. You chose it. Over and over again. You planned it. Hid it. Fed it. Watered it like a garden and watched it grow while you told me you were working late. Her father cleared his throat like he might say something, but I cut in before the weak attempt at mediation. Did you tell them about the hotel charges? The fake meetings? The therapy sessions that ended in 2-hour FaceTimes with your affair partner? She stood now, trembling, fist clenched. I did it because I was dying in that marriage. I was fading into nothing, and you were too busy being perfect to notice. I stood too. Don't confuse my stability for your chaos. I didn't miss the signs, I ignored them. I hoped you'd come back. Instead, you brought someone else into our bed in spirit if not in body. Her friend gasped audibly. Oh my God, she whispered. It's true. My ex turned, wild-eyed, desperate now. You people think he's so noble? He's a manipulative, cold, enough, her mother said suddenly, her voice more steel than it had been all evening. You lied to us. You lied to everyone. I don't know who you are anymore. She looked like she'd been slapped. Her lover chose that exact moment to arrive, late as usual, thinking he could slink in unnoticed. My brother spotted him. That him. I nodded. The room turned. The man froze. Yeah, I said. The other guy. The one who got leftovers and thought it was a feast. The guy tried to backpedal, muttering something about not wanting trouble. You've already had it, I said. She'll turn on you next. Don't worry. She's consistent like that. My ex spun toward him. You said you were going to be here for me. He raised his hands. I didn't sign up for this. And just like that, he left. She stood there, alone, face flushed, mascara cracking, jaw slack as everyone in that room saw the full collapse of the lie she'd built. She looked at me one last time, eyes pleading, defiant, shattered. You're going to regret this, she whispered. I stepped closer, leaned in. I regret meeting you, I said clearly, calmly, so everyone could hear. But I'll never regret leaving you. And with that, I walked out. Every eye followed me. And she stood there, surrounded by the ruins of her excuses, her betrayal laid bare, with nothing left but the sound of her own breath shaking in her chest. She fell quietly, like most cowards do when the audience stops clapping. First came the job. HR didn't even bother with a meeting, just a sterile email citing ethical concerns and a request to collect her things before Friday. Her name was quietly erased from team pages, removed from email chains, forgotten like she never existed there at all. Then the social circle cracked. Group chats silenced her number, invites dried up, brunch plans vanished. The same people she once bragged to about her freedom, now crossed streets to avoid her. Her Instagram turned private. Her followers dipped by the hundreds. She tried rebranding herself with quotes about growth, healing, and finding peace, but the algorithm didn't care, and neither did anyone else. Rachel blocked her. Her cousin told her not to come around for Christmas. Her father sent back a letter she mailed, unopened. Her mother never responded to the voicemail where she sobbed for 5 straight minutes. The affair partner ghosted her the moment life stopped being convenient. He blocked her number, deleted their pictures, and scrubbed his socials within days. When she messaged him from a burner account, he replied once, "Grow up." She moved out of the city 2 months later, into a rundown one-bedroom in a place where no one knew her name, and worked the counter at a local thrift shop. No more designer bags. No more weekend spa trips. Just hangers, dust, and the quiet sound of people not caring who she used to be. But the worst part wasn't what she lost, it was realizing she could never get back what she destroyed. That's what led her to my door. One rainy Tuesday, she showed up, drenched, shaking, mascara running like war paint down her face. She didn't even knock. She just stood there, staring at the doorbell camera, whispering my name like it was a prayer to a god she stopped believing in when times were good. I watched her from inside, calm, still, coffee in hand, as she pressed the button. "Please," she cried. "I need to talk to you." I didn't answer. She knocked harder. "I know I messed up. I know. But I can't live like this. I think about you every day. I remember everything. The way you smelled. The way you used to look at me. I was stupid. I was selfish. I don't want to be this person anymore." She slid down to the porch, sobbing, hugging her knees like a teenager caught stealing. I opened the door, slowly. She looked up, eyes wide, lips trembling. "I still love you," she whispered. I looked down at her like a man examining a ghost. "Strange," I said. "I don't even remember your name anymore." She broke. Right there on the welcome mat, where she used to kiss me before work, where we once danced barefoot during summer storms. But I didn't feel anything. Not hate. Not joy. Not even satisfaction. Just the final click of a door that would never open again. I shut it without another word. And now, I'm telling you this not because I want revenge. I already had that. I'm telling you this because sometimes silence is the loudest justice. So thank you for listening. I want to know, where are you listening from? And did this story hit the way it was meant to?